Welcome to today's program, and I have a wonderful guest. Her name is Olga Robertson, and she is the author of a book with the intriguing title, The Men in My Life. And she even persuaded Pastor Chuck Smith to write the foreword. Olga is now 88. She is a veteran missionary to the Philippines, but particularly to people in prison in that country. So, Olga, first of all, thank you for being on the program.
You're welcome, Dan.
Now, you are one of the most amazing people anyone could meet, that you're still working. But tell us a little bit of your story. You were born in the Philippines, but where were your family from?
My dad is from Lebanon, and my mom is from Singapore. And my dad was a businessman, and he traveled. And when he went to the Philippines, that's where all the children were born, except one of my brothers who was born in Singapore.
So how did you get the name Robertson then?
Because I was very innocent. My dad never allowed us three girls to go out with any boys. Mm-hmm. We couldn't have dates if there were boys.
Yeah.
And so when I began working in the Air Force, I met one of the guys there, and he invited me out and had an affair with me. Oh. And I was so innocent, I didn't know what was happening. Yeah. Before I knew it, I was going to have a baby. Oh, boy. But it happened to be I had twins, not one. Wow. And he left me. Oh, dear. He left me.
And how old were you then?
I was then about, maybe 22, 23.
Wow. So, Olga, that wasn't a very good start. Were you a believer at that time?
No, I wasn't. But my brother, I think, was more of a Christian than I didn't know the Lord. Yeah. But this man, Robertson, took me to the Justice of the Peace, and that's where we were married. Okay. And so that's all. I was married for one day.
Oh, no.
And then he left for the States.
That's terrible.
Yeah, and, he got married to his former girlfriend. And, when my twins were grown up, and then they found out, I was able to get his address in the States. And amazing thing is that his daughter today and one of my daughters are so close to each other.
Yeah?
Oh, they are so close.
Wow.
It's unbelievable. And his daughter, in fact, his wife invited my twins. Mm-hmm. And they were to go to his home. In fact, my daughter, Kay, met him. He wanted to meet her. He didn't know that she was his daughter. He thought she was a woman interested in what he was selling. Huh. And she took a plane and went to where he was. And they met at the dining room table. And she said, "What does a girl say to her husband?" And he looked and he realized then this was his daughter. Wow. From me. Huh. But, after that, my other daughter met him, and the wife met them, and we thought everything was going to work out. But he didn't want to have anything more to do with them. Oh. But his daughter, from this second wife, she wanted to keep in touch with my daughter.
So you got off to a pretty shaky start there. How eventually was this turned around, and how did you find the Lord?
Well, it was when I attended one of the churches in the Philippines, and I heard the gospel, and that was the first time. But then later on, when I heard about Calvary Chapel, a friend of mine took me there and introduced me to Pastor Chuck. And Pastor Chuck said, "We'd love to have you." And when I started, I couldn't stop. I loved the chapel, but I loved the Lord above everything else.
So you by then had moved from the Philippines to California then?
Yes, because my twin daughters were here.
Yes.
They were ahead of me. And so I had a prison ministry that was open. And though I was afraid of men, God gave me peace in my heart when I saw these men. I didn't know their crimes, but I thought, why, these are ordinary men. But later on, as a missionary to the prison, I found out, I kept a notebook and I kept pictures of the prisoners and found out about their crimes. It didn't bother me.
Yeah.
Because
so how did you start then? I've been to the prison that you were, is it Muntinlupa?
Yeah, New Willibed prison.
Yeah, and I went there to see Roger Arriende. You may remember.
Yeah, Roger Arrienda.
Yeah, that's right.
Who is already released.
Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm. But that's a scary place for me to go. So for you to go. So how did you initially get involved in the prison ministry there?
Well, I started first with the children of the prisoners on the reservation, and then I was given permission to go in, and I went inside and held a service on the prison grounds. And then when the prisoners started coming and showing interest, and I thought I got permission then to build a chapel. And the prisoners built the chapel. So God was good. I had prisoners come, and the chapel was really packed out. And of course, there were other groups then starting to come
into the prison.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so there were chapels all over the place.
Now, how big is this prison? How many prisoners?
Oh, there were 10,000 at that time when I started.
Yeah, wow.
And it's growing. Yeah, because I have been there now 54 years.
Wow. Were you allowed into what was then death row?
Yes, I could go in. I would go first into the cells. And then I would go to the dormitory. And these were also death row.
Yeah.
But when one of the leaders got saved and gave his heart to the Lord, then he would let me go in, and the men who were working had to stop their work and listen to the gospel.
Huh.
And so there are so many who have been released and have been a witness for the Lord. I have testimonies of them witnessing for the Lord, and one who was witnessing when he got off the tricycle that took him to his home. He was leading the tricycle driver to the Lord, and he got heart attack and fell dead right there in front of his tent, where his family, were helping him with the meetings that he was having, and I know he's with the Lord.
Now, Olga, have you ever been in real danger, and have you been involved in violence in one of these places?
Yes, I had visitors come, a husband and his wife, and another evangelist, and they went to death row. In fact, Pastor Chuck Smith had gone there. And then 2 days later, these 3 people, missionaries and friends of mine, came. And they were preaching the word. And when they were coming out of the building, they were attacked by 4 prisoners with knives.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. And they knew that my van was in the prison. And they ordered me to get my van and come around, and they got the hostages into the back of my van.
Wow.
And making me drive out through the gate.
Do they have like knives at your back or?
No, the visitors, they had the knives at the throat.
Yes, yeah.
And then one of them jumped in the front when I was by the gate trying to get in. And he jumped in the front and he put a knife in my side.
Ooh.
And he wanted me to obey, but I held the knife and I pushed it away from me and I said, I can't drive that way.
Yeah.
So he didn't do anything. But when I came to the main gate and all the guards were standing there and the superintendent was coming in the back of my van, I quickly pulled the brake, opened the door and jumped. And he jumped after me with a knife, but the guards were there, they shot him.
Ooh.
So his blood was on my uniform and he fell dead.
Dear.
And then the two members inside, the two missionaries that were in the car, the guards started shooting, and the lady got some stray bullets in her leg.
Oh, boy.
And the other inmate stabbed the husband twice, but the guard had shot him.
Yeah.
So he died. So all the inmates were dead.
Dear.
And the missionaries were rushed to the hospital.
Wow. Well, I would imagine most people would want to give up after that. So why did you continue?
You know, Paul, one of the missionaries, came back the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I want to go in. And I thought, what? you were attacked here? He said, I want to go in to get over my fear. And a guard said, here, take my gun. He said, no, I don't need your gun.
Huh.
So he went into my chapel, and a death convict who was a born-again Christian in my chapel, Paul put his arm around him and walked with him back outside to the gate.
Wow.
But he got over that fear.
So here you are, you've survived this terrible experience, and you eventually wrote this book, The Men in My Life. And these are some of the key characters. Some of them, I believe, were executed afterwards. Can you tell us some of these people that you featured in your book?
It was Billy Salar, who gave his heart to the Lord, and he was to die in the electric chair. And he sat there with two others that he led to the Lord. And the priest had come and told them, you are Catholics. And they said, no, Father, we have accepted Jesus. And they were willing to die in the electric chair. And Billy, when he sat in the electric chair, told the Lord, he said, I'm ready to go. I know you have prepared for me a place in heaven. And with that, the current went through his body, and he went to be with the Lord. And so did the other two. They were ready.
And what happened to the other two? What were their backgrounds?
They were with Billy when they robbed a couple in the province and killed them. So that's why all three of them were to die in the electric chair.
Wow.
But when Billy led them to the Lord and they accepted Christ, they were sure they were going to meet the Lord.
Wow. We're speaking with the one and only Olga Robertson, who at the age of 88 has still got plenty of men in her life. This is a lady who recovered after a very difficult marriage, which lasted one day, brought two twins into the world, and then goes back to minister in the most dangerous prison in the Philippines, and eventually wrote a book about it called The Men in My Life. Tell us another outstanding story of someone you were able to minister to.
Can I tell about that?
Yeah.
Well, I went last year. I went back to the prison, and I told the boys we're going to distribute the Gospel of John. So from building to building, day after day, we gave out the Gospel of John. And then I said, This day we're going to death row. So we went to death row and we gave tracts. And one of the tracts was Jack's Lily. And I didn't know. I read it and it really touched my heart.
What does that mean? What was it about?
It's about a prisoner whose daughter was like an invalid, had something wrong with her, and she can hardly walk. Her brother had died, her little brother. The mother had deserted the child, and it's a very touching story. And I took this tract and started giving it out to death row boys that were there. And there was a prisoner that was singing for his roommates, all of them in the cells. And when I gave him this tract, he stopped singing. I didn't think anything about it, and I just continued giving out these tracts about prisoners and different testimonies. And later on, when I had finished giving out all the tracts, this prisoner came up to me and he said, "Mommy, I want to thank you." I said, "For what?" "For coming in and giving me a tract. Because I know no one is allowed to come in the prison, no visitor, no loved one, no members of our family are allowed to come in on Monday and Tuesday. Only you." Because I've been there so long, and all the gods trust me. So he said, "I read this tract about this child who wanted to see her father in prison." And he said, "I cried and cried because the little girl at the end died. But she had given her father this lily plant, and it died. But then one day after the child was dead, and he said that plant revived. And he said, "I cried and cried, and this tract shows that those who receive Christ have everlasting life." And I knew he gave his heart to the Lord.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, I understand you may have played a role in getting the death penalty stopped in the Philippines. What was the story behind that?
I couldn't believe, but I had sent my book, The Men in My Life, to the former president, who was a lady, and telling her about the men who had given their hearts to the Lord. And I feel when she came to the prison, I went in and I said, "What's going on?" And they said, "That's the president. She's standing and talking to the death convicts." And the director was there. And she was telling them that she's going to take out the death penalty. And it's going to be life. They were glad, thinking, taking out the death. No one's going to die in the electric chair.
That's so wonderful that you were able to minister there and possibly get the life spared of many of these people that have accepted the Lord. And is it true now that you're campaigning that maybe some of them could be freed?
They asked me if I could write a letter to the new president and ask him, send him also my book, and ask him if he could take out the life. No.
To give them some hope that they eventually could come back into society.
Yeah, because some of them have been there 30 years.
Wow.
And if you go up to death row today, you won't see what you used to see, that these men had no hope.
Yeah.
But they have stores.
Yeah.
They have little stores where they're selling candies and cookies and gum and
in the prison.
And if you go around the grounds, you'll see little stores everywhere, restaurants. The men their wives are coming in and cooking and selling food to the other inmates. They don't want the prison food sometimes. They give that to the dogs that are around the place. It's different. It's so different. And I can't believe this, what I see myself.
Yeah.
Because when I first entered, it was prison.
Yeah.
Just prison.
So why on earth haven't you retired now and given up your work with the prisoners? Why do you continue it?
Why I continue? Because I'm burdened for them. I love them, seeing the new life in the born-again Christians, and see how trustworthy they are, how loving, and whatever I send in boxes are distributed evenly. When I go back, I find out, oh, Mommy, look what I got in the box, given to me by the pastor.
So what do they call you then? Is it Mommy Olga?
Yeah, I don't know. It started with someone calling me Mom, and then now it's Mommy. So even the guards all call me Mommy.
Yes, yeah. Olga, after all these years of ministry, what have you learnt most from the Lord in your ministry into these prisons?
The Lord has, every time I ask the Lord, Lord, show me, Lord, is this what you want me to do? And it seems like the Lord just opens a door, and even the provision, what I can send to the boys, like the what do you call, the one who's shipping my boxes to the prison. He's a shipper, but his wife is very close to me, and she came with 2 sacks of clothing, and I went through them, and I saw men's clothing, shirts, shorts, pants. And so when I went back to the Philippines last year, my boxes arrived. 5 boxes all together. And I opened them, and here are the clothing. And so it was divided with the maximum and the medium in our chapel. And I would ask them, what do you want? What clothing? Here they are. And they say, shorts, 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 because it's so hot in the Philippines.
Wow.
And so everyone in the chapel and in the maximum and the medium got clothing.
That's wonderful.
Oh.
Now, if people want to get a copy of your book, Olga, or find out about your ministry, do you have a website? Do you have a website where people can go? But how can they get your book?
The only thing is they have to go, if it, in the States, Calvary Chapel in Costa Mesa.
So if they go in the bookstore there, they can see copies of it?
Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And over here, I'm taking some books to the bookstore because they don't have my book.
Okay, great.
And I'm going to ask them if they would just put it in the chapel, in the store.
Finally, Olga, what is your favorite scripture?
Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he will direct thy paths.
That's Olga Robertson. She's only 88. She's a missionary for more than 50 years to probably the most dangerous prison in the Philippines. And she has written this book, The Men in My Life. So, Olga, thank you so much for being on the program.
You're welcome, Dan. It's my privilege.